What's up YouTube, it's your boy Nash here, welcome back to the channel, and today I have an updated Elemental Hero Neos deck profile for you guys today. So, I ended up doing a complete 180 on this deck. I did keep most of the deck, but I took out so many cards. I had to reconfigure the deck, and I realized as I was rebuilding the deck, I realized, because if you guys remember with the last build, I added in the 2 copies of Space Gift and then the 1 copy of EN Wave. I realized that Space Gift is essentially a brick because of the fact that the Neospatians, they don't stay on the field for long. They usually stay on board for the summon of the Neos fusions for the most part, and Space Gift is essentially a brick. Yeah, you do. Yeah, you can potentially draw like up to like 6 cards, but it really doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter because of the fact that you have cards, cards such as Divine Wind to give you the +1 anyway, as well as Legacy of a Hero, which is sort of like a much more revamped version of Moray of Greed anyway. And then of course too, the EN Wave really does nothing to the deck. So I ended up cutting it out. I did a complete 180 with this deck, including the extra and the side. I ended up making a few modifications to the side as well as the extra deck as well. So hopefully you guys are ready for this deck profile. If you guys are and you guys want to see more deck profiles in the future, which I actually have, in which I'm currently working on a Crystal Beast deck, Monarchs, and Dark World with the new support that we just got, which I talked about in yesterday's video if you guys have not seen it. But if you guys do want to see more deck profiles in the future, make sure you guys give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and hit that note and turn on the notification bell, and follow me on my social media. The links will be in the description below, as will the info to my fan mail. It will also be in the description as well. Let's get straight into it. First up, for the Neos monsters, we have 3 copies of Elemental Hero Neos. This is basically the bread and butter. If you don't have this card if you're not running 3 copies of Neos in your deck, you are not playing Neos at all. Literally, you are not playing Neos at all. Which it is what it is, right? But still, basically, Neos just helps you. It basically just helps get into your Neos fusions, such as Brave Neos, Dark Neos, Air Neos, Shiny Neos Wingman, which I'm running in the deck, as well as Cosmo Neos, and pretty much any other like Neos fusion you have at your disposal, basically. So, but moving on. Next up, we have the 1 copy of Elemental Hero Spirit of Neos. I'm assuming they might call it Neos Spirit, or maybe they might keep the name in the TCG once Power of the Elements comes out. I'm not so sure. I haven't really thought about that, honestly. But excuse me, this card is essentially Neos with an effect. So if you guys have never seen the card before or never watched that video, which I recommend you watch it. It was quite the video, to say the very least. It is a 7-star light warrior with an effect, mind you, with 2,500 attack and 2,000 defense. Pretty much the same stats as the original Neos, and of course to the Honest Neos, which I'm running in the deck, which I'll get to that in a second. And it has a few effects. The first effect reads: when an opponent's monster declares an attack, you can special summon this card from your hand in defense position, and if you do, it cannot be destroyed by battle. Second effect reads: if this card is special summoned, you can add a spell trap that mentions an elemental hero monster's name or a polymerization from your deck to your hand. During your main phase, the third effect reads, during your main phase you can shuffle this card into the deck, and if you do, special summon an elemental hero normal monster from your deck. You can only use each effect once per turn. So basically, it's a battle phase Cyber Dragon, Spell Trap Rhoda, and you can just compulse this card back into your deck, summon out Neos, and if you have, you know, let's say, as a random example, you know, if you have, let's say, I'll say Solid Soldier on board already, and you have Neos Fusion, you can then activate Neos Fusion, fuse Neos with Solid Soldier to get out Brave Neos. Solid Soldier's effect triggers, and he becomes a monster reborn. So you can then summon Stratos from your deck, from your graveyard, trigger its effect, get out. I'll say the Shadow Mist, and you essentially just have, a one card mass change, because Shadow Mist is basically a one card mass change. It can help you get into mass change really quickly. And my brother just texted me. Give me 1 second. Give me 1 second, guys. There we go. Anyway, so that's pretty much like one of the big combos. Not combos, but one of the big plays you can make with this deck. Next up, we have the one elemental hero, Honest Neos. This card is absolutely insane. There's no way to describe how insanely good this card is. There's no way to describe it, to be honest. But I must admit, though, this card is actually just insane, because if you guys have never seen the card before, the card is just absolutely insane. Basically, so if you guys have never heard of the card before, this card was released in Duelist Saga all the way back in 2017. By the way, shout out to Starbucks for the coffee, not sponsored. Their cold brew is just incredible. Anyway, this basically is honest on steroids. So both effects are quick effects, and the first one reads, you can discard this card, target a hero monster on the field, it gains 2500 attack until the end of the turn. So in a scenario where let's say your Absolute Zero. Let's say your Absolute Zero is about to be destroyed, and you have Honest Neos in hand. You can then activate Honest Neos effect, send it to your graveyard, and then equip it, and basically equip its attack to Absolute Zero. Its attack becomes double, and it can knock out your opponent. It can knock out one of your opponent's monsters in one blow as a counterattack, which is really cool. But of course, too, a big downside, call by. Like, one of the biggest downsides to it all. But still, if Honest Neos does stick, it's crazy. It's a crazy effect. The second effect, which is also a quick effect, and this one can only be activated when he's on board, which reads, you can discard one hero monster. This card gains attack equal to the discarded monster's attack until the end of the turn. Can only use each effect once per turn. So again, basically, it's honest on steroids, basically. So there ain't much else to say about that. Next up, we have only a single copy of Elemental Hero Stratos, and I know what you guys are thinking. You're thinking, wait a minute, why? Why only one Stratos? The reason being is because his effect is not a once per turn. So in a scenario where Stratos is in your graveyard and you have Liquid Soldier in your hand, you can then normal summon Liquid Soldier, trigger his effect, get out Stratos from your grave, trigger his effect, get out, I'll say, I'll say the Spirit of Neos as a random example, and you can instantly just go into. You can then activate Mass Change, target Stratos, send it to your graveyard, get out Divine Wind, and Divine Wind is essentially a dark door in a dark door with legs, and plus two, if you were to use Stratos again and it got sent to your graveyard, and you've sent Solid Soldier to the graveyard by way of a spell, then you can then use his effect, resummon Stratos, and you can get another hero to your hand. So it's basically like one of the best cards you could ever play, because of the fact that you have cards such as Reborn, you've got Liquid Soldier, Solid Soldier, all to basically summon out Stratos over and over and over and over and over and over again, and that's why you only need one copy in this deck. I know some people might say, oh, this card's better at 3. In most cases, yes. In most cases, when it comes to pure heroes, that run E heroes, Destiny heroes, Evil heroes, and Vision heroes, yeah. In those scenarios, absolutely a 3F. But this is only a 1F because you don't have a whole lot of targets for Stratos. You only have the 3 Neos, the 1 Spirited Neos, the 1 Honest Neos. You've got the Liquid Soldier, the Solid Soldier, the 2 Shadow Mists, and that's it. Those are the only targets you have for Stratos when it's summoned. That's it. So in most cases, if you don't have any more targets, then you're most likely going to be using Stratos for its other effect, where it can just feather duster your opponent's back row for the most part. And of course, as I said before, we are running the one Liquid Soldier, which essentially it's only a 1-of anyway, because of the fact that it has a Monster Reborn Pot of Greed effect. And by Monster Reborn effect, I mean when it's normal summon, you can summon out one of your heroes from your graveyard back to your field. In which case, you're going to most likely summon Stratos, get its effect out to get out one of your heroes, and you're off to the races there. And it has a second effect where it reads, if this card is used as fusion material for a hero monster and sent to the grave or banished, you can draw 2 cards. But you have to discard 1. So what is the 1 card you're going to be discarding the most? It is Shadow Mist. Reason being is because Shadow Mist is essentially a break in the hand if you don't have Solid Soldier in the hand. If you don't have Solid Soldier in the hand, Shadow Mist is going to be a break. So you're most likely going to be sending him to your graveyard to search out for Solid Soldier, which is really cool. And then of course, again, Solid Soldier, basically this acts as a double summon of sorts, but it has another effect where it reads, if this card is sent from the monster zone to the grave by a spell, you can target a hero monster in your grave, accept this card, and special summon it in defense. Stratos for the most part, or you can also summon Shadow Mist in defense to get out Mass Change. So it's basically a double-edged sword. So it doesn't matter which one you get, whether it's Stratos or Shadow Mist, you're gonna be plussing off. You're gonna be plussing off of Solid Soldier either way, no matter what, which is really good. And then of course too, we have the 2 Shadow Mists. With Shadow Mist, it's usually a 1-of for the most part. But because that I have 5 copies of Mass Change essentially in the deck, I decided to keep it at 2 because of that. Because of the fact that I've got the 3 Mass Change and the 2 Mass Change 2, which Mass Change 2 is nutty. It's just too damn good. And then of course we are running the one Neospace Connector as sort of a Brave Neos target of sorts, but it can also be a target for yet another fusion that's in this deck. But what could it be? You'll find out once we get to the extra deck. But if you guys don't know about Neospace Connector, its effect reads: when this card is normal summon, you can special summon a Neospatian monster or an elemental hero Neos from your hand or deck in defense position. You can, and that's it. That's just pretty much it. Second effect reads: you contribute this card, then target a Neospatian monster or a Neos in your grave, special summon in defense. So it basically acts as a double summon. You can either summon from your deck and then summon from your graveyard. You can actually, funny enough, you can actually use both effects in the same turn. So in a scenario where you do have Neos Fusion in hand, but you want to get out the connector's full power, you can normal summon the connector, triggers effect, summon Neos from your deck. Ooh, excuse me. Activate Neos Fusion, send Neos and the Space Connector to your graveyard, get out Brave Neos, and then Space Connector's effect triggers again, and you can then summon Neos back from your graveyard. So you essentially have two 2500 beat sticks on board, which is insane. And if you have Honest Neos in hand, whoo, that's quite the interesting predicament that your opponent will be in. But we are gonna round up the monster lineup with the Neospatians. We are running one of each, one of all six. So we have the one Dark Panther, which can basically basically copy pretty much any effect and any name that your opponent may have on board. Grand Mole, which is essentially a compulse, which is hilariously broken. Air Hummingbird, it's one of the worst ones, but it does give you 500 life points for each card that your opponent has in their hand, which is not too bad, but it all depends on how many cards they have in their hand. So the cards that they have in their hand, you can gain up to like 3,000 life points, which isn't too bad, which is not too bad at all. We are also, and then of course too, the Aqua Dolphin. Basically, you can just basically just rip a card out of your opponent's hand, and if it's a monster, then they get dealt 500 points of damage, which isn't too bad. And I believe it's not a once per turn. Oh, okay, never mind. It is a once per turn. Okay, I thought so, because I know in the anime it was not once per turn. Hilariously enough, Flare Scarab is another really bad one. But it's mainly in here for the Cosmo Cosmo Neos, which is pretty cool. And then of course Glowmoss, this card is hilarious. If you guys have never seen the card before, the effect reads: if this card attacks or is attacked, your opponent draws a card and shows it, then based on its type, applies this effect. Monster and the battle phase this turn. Spell: if this card is attacking, you can change it to a direct attack instead. If it's a trap card, change this card to defense. So if you were to if your opponent draws a trap card, which for the most part they're not going to, it gets destroyed either way, which is insane. But that's it for the monster lineup. For the spells, holy shit, we have a lot of them. So first up for the one-ofs of the deck, we have the one Monster Reborn and the one Harpy's Feather Duster. Just because of the fact that Feather Duster is a house. Only because of the fact that Duster is 100% OP. There's no way to describe how broken Harpy's Feather Duster is. Then of course we have two copies of Legacy of the Hero. This card is a nutty nutty card. If you guys do not, if you guys have never, if you guys do not know, it's basically Moray of Greed, which is hilarious. Moray of Greed, though, reads, shuffle 2 water monsters from your hand into the deck, draw 3 cards. Legacy of a Hero basically is that, but instead of from the hand, it says return 2 fusion monsters from your grave to the extra deck that lists a hero monster as material, draw 3 cards. It's a Moray of Greed, basically, and this card is just a house. So in a scenario where you want to resummon, let's say your Air Neos or your Dark Neos or whatever, you can basically shuffle those cards back into your extra deck, and you draw 3 cards. It's just that broken. It's just that broken. And then of course too, we are running the 2 copies of Neospace, which is basically the field spell, which is mainly in here as a way to not only deal even more damage to your opponent, but it also stops your Neos fusion from going back into your extra deck. And plus, there's no terraforming in this deck. Brave Neos is already a terraforming with legs, so it's just a house as is. But then we move on to the fusion spells, and holy shit, we have a lot of them. We have 3, 6, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 13 fusion spells. First up, 3 copies of Neos Fusion. Basically, it helps you get out Brave Neos really fast. Not much else to say about that. But what's even more interesting is that you can also, funny enough, I believe this is the case, but while I was testing this variant out, I realized that Absolute Zero can also be summoned off of Neos Fusion, which is hilarious. But Neos Fusion is basically polymerization for Neos, which is pretty cool, which is absolutely nutty. The only downside, there is a small downside though. So the effect reads, special summon a fusion monster from your extra deck that lists exactly 2 monsters as material, including Neos, by sending those monsters from your hand, deck, or field to the... By sending those monsters from your hand, deck, or field, ignoring summoning conditions. For the rest of this turn, after this card resolves, you cannot special summon monsters. If a fusion monster or monsters you control that lists Neos as material will be destroyed by battle or card effect, or shuffled into the extra by its own effect, you can banish the card from your grave instead. So this essentially is a return of the Dragon Lords for the deck. It basically acts as a protection, which is really nice. We got the 1 Miracle Fusion as basically another way to summon out Absolute Zero, which is really nice. 3 copies of Mass Change and 2 copies of Mass Change 2 because of the 5 Mass Heroes that I'm running in the deck, which is really nice. We have 2 copies of Instant Contact. This card is just a house. It is an absolute house. So the effect reads pay 1,000 life points, special summon a level 7 or lower elemental hero or Neospace monster from your extra deck, ignoring its summoning conditions. But if you do not have Neos on your field or in your graveyard, the summoned monster cannot attack, its effects are negated, also returning to the extra deck during the end phase. You can only activate 1 instant contact per turn. So you would literally need to have Neos in your graveyard in order to get its full effect, basically. But it's essentially instant fusion for Flame Wingman to help you go into the Shiny Neos Wingman, which is really nice. Seriously, think about this. Think about this. Instant contact, summon Flame Wingman. Neos Fusion, send Flame Wingman from your field. Neos from your deck into the graveyard. Summon out Shining Flare, Shiny Neos Wingman. It's just insane. It is just insane. And then of course we also have Miracle Contact. 2 copies of Miracle Contact. Another way to get out your Neos fusions right off the bat, which is really nice. Moving on into the traps, there's only 4 in the deck. We have 2 copies of Next, which basically, if you activate this during your opponent's end phase, you're gonna have a board full of Neospacians and Neos on board, which is pretty nice. And then of course we got the 1 strike, the 1 solemn strike, and the 1 solemn warning for even more negation. Moving on into the extra deck, I'm gonna go from the Masked Heroes all the way back to the Neos fusion. So for the Masked Heroes, we've got Dark Law, we got Acid, Blast, Divine Wit, and Diane. Dark Law basically is a called by the Grave of the Leg, or sorry, no, it's basically a Macrocosmos. Is it macro? It's basically Macrocosmos on steroids. So not only is it a Macrocosmos for your opponent, but once per turn, whenever your opponent were to add cards from their deck to their hand, except during the draw phase, you basically get to rip one of your opponent's cards and banish it right off the bat, which is really insane. Masked Hero Acid is basically is sort of like a second copy of Harpy's Feather Duster, so it's really cool. And not only that, but all monsters that your opponent controls lose 300 attack. So this works well in conjunction with cards, such as like Brave Neos, Shiny Neos, Wingman, because your opponent, because your opponent's monster's attack will go down extensively, and it'll basically get to a point where they'll have no choice but to scoop, which is really hilariously insane. Masked Hero Blast basically is a, I guess you could say it's a, I guess you can say it's a compulse for back row. So its effect reads: if this card is special summon, you can target on face-up monster your opponent controls. Its attack becomes half its current attack. So it's essentially Gale the Whirlwind on. It's essentially a hero version of Gale the Whirlwind, basically. And then once per turn, as a quick effect, you can pay 500 life points, target a spell or trap your opponent controls, return it to the hand. Yeah, so it's essentially Gale. Is essentially Gale Compulse, basically, which is really nice. Divine Wind essentially is a dark door with legs, and whenever it destroys one of your opponent's monsters by battle and sends it to the graveyard, you get to draw a card. So if you were to top deck, let's say your Mass Change, and you have I'll say Solid Soldier on board, you can then activate Mass Change, send your Solid Soldier to your graveyard, summon Diane, which I'm going to talk about here right now, and you get to basically trigger Solid Soldier's effect, summon out Stratos, get out I'll say Honest Neos as a random example, and you're off to the races there, which is really nice. Masked Hero Diane basically has an effect where it says that if it destroys an opponent's monster by battle and sends it to the graveyard, you can summon out a level 4 or lower hero from your deck. So you can basically summon out Shadow Mist and get out a Mass Change, and you can just go into even more of your Masked Hero plays from there, which is really cool. We got the one Absolute Zero, which is essentially a Regeki when it's destroyed. Whenever it leaves the field, which is really nice. Flying Wingman, based mainly for the shiny Neos Wingman. Brave Neos, because Brave Neos obviously is a terraforming for Neospace, but you can also pretty much just get any. But you can get pretty much any spell or trap with Neos in its name, so you can get out Neos Fusion, Next, Miracle Contact, or even Instant Contact as well, which is really cool. And then of course for the other Neos Fusions, we have Grand Neos, we have Dark Neos, and of course we have Air Neos as well. Grand Neos basically is a compulse, which is really nice. Dark Neos can basically just imperm one of your opponent's monsters, which is really cool. And then Air Neos just ensures that its attack becomes higher than your opponent's, depending on both your life points and your opponent's, which is really cool. And then of course, too, Shiny Neos Wingman has multiple effects. So the first effect reads, if this card is special summon, you can destroy cards your opponent controls up to the number of different attributes on the field. Basically, you just pop your opponent's board really quickly, which is really nice. And this next effect is a once per turn, which reads, gains 300 attack for each monster. That effect is a once per turn. This effect reads, gains 300 attack for each monster in your grave, cannot be destroyed by card effects. If this card destroys a monster by battle, inflict damage to your opponent equal to the destroyed monster's original attack. So it basically just ensures that you have game on board. It basically lets you deal so much damage, your opponent will have no choice but to scoop, which is really nice. Then of course we've got Nebula Neos, which is one of the most insane cards you will ever see. The effect reads, if this card is special summoned from the extra deck, draw cards equal to the number of cards your opponent controls, then negate the effects of one face-up card on the field until the end of the turn. So it's essentially you draw cards and you get to imperm one of your opponent's cards, which is really nice. And then it basically has the effect of the regular Neos Fusions. But if you were to use that effect, the effect reads, banish all cards on the field face down. So yeah, it's just absolutely nutty. And then of course we have Cosmo Neos, where it reads, if this card is supposed to summon from the extra deck, you can activate this effect. For the rest of the turn, your opponent cannot activate cards. Also, cards your opponent controls cannot activate their effects. So it basically acts as sort of like a Dark Ruler No More of sorts, which is really nice. In response to this effect's activation, yeah. So basically it acts as a Dark Ruler No More, basically. And then if you were to shuffle this card back into the extra deck at the end phase, you can destroy all cards your opponent controls. So it's essentially a Regeki Harpy's Feather Duster on its own, which is really nice. And then the new fusion that I'm about to mention is known as Wake Up Your Elemental Hero. I talked about this in a earlier video, but it is a 10-star light warrior with 2,500 attack, 2,100 defense, and it requires an elemental hero fusion and at least one or more warrior monsters. So you can basically just use, so if you don't want to use Brave Neos anymore, you can fuse it, and also say Shadow Mist, and you can instantly just get this card out really quickly, which is really nice. So the effect reads, must be fusion summoned, gains 300 attack for each fusion material used for its summon. This card can make a number of attacks on monsters each battle phase up to the number of fusion monsters used as fusion material for its summon. If this card battled a monster after damage Cal, destroy that monster. If you do, inflict damage to your opponent equal to its original attack. If this fusion summon card is destroyed, special summon a warrior from your hand or deck. So basically it's another version of Shiny Neos Wingman, basically. So that's actually really busted. Being able to just deal more damage to your opponent is just too good. The side deck is a bit different from the last build. I am running for the side deck. I have a second copy of Solid Soldier, just in case if let's say the Neospaces don't work out. Definitely side one of them out for the Solid Soldier. For hand traps, we got the 2 Ash, the 2 Ogre, and the 2 Bell. We got the 3rd Legacy of a Hero. Obviously, more cards to draw gives you even more access to your extra deck. We have the 1 Called By, 2 Twin Twister, a Parallel World Fusion. So, if you guys don't know, Miracle Fusion basically is the Elemental Hero version of Overload Fusion. Parallel World Fusion is basically their Cyber Fusion Dragon, their Cyberload Fusion, which is really nice. The third Neospace, and then of course the second Strike and the second Warning. So, guys, hopefully you guys enjoyed the deck profile. Let me know in the comments your guys' thoughts on the deck. Honestly, I think it looks extremely solid. It looks absolutely busted. I will be posting the deck list on the channel, not on the channel, on my Instagram. So if you guys enjoyed this deck profile and you guys want to see more, smash the thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, and follow me on my social media. The links will be in the description below, as will the info to my fan mail. It will also be in the description as well. And on that, this is your boy Nash, signing out.